I have a confession to make. When most people say poetry, my brain, it just immediately shuts down.
Oh, I get it.
I'm right back in high school English class, staring at a page, and I'm just trying to figure out why the author's going on about daffodils for 3 pages.
Right.
Just say it was a nice spring day.
It's the classic blue curtains problem. Their teacher says the curtains represent depression, and you're just sitting there thinking, maybe the guy just liked the color blue.
Exactly. It often feels like a
Oh.
decoration. Pretty, but not exactly useful when you're trying to navigate a stressful Tuesday.
Hmm.
But this stack of papers you brought in today,
Hmm.
this is different.
Very different.
We are diving into James Allen's Poems of Peace. And honestly, calling this poetry almost feels like a misdirection.
It kind of is.
It reads more like a rigorous technical instruction manual for the human mind. It just happens to rhyme.
That is the perfect way to frame it. This book was published in 1907, and it's actually the 7th book in Allen's complete collection. Now, most people know him for As a Man Thinketh, which is straight prose, very direct, very punchy. But here, he's doing something else. He's not trying to make you feel fuzzy inside with nice rhymes. He is trying to teach what he calls the science of self-control.
The science is self-control. I love that. It implies it's repeatable. It's not magic. It's a formula.
Precisely. So our mission for this deep dive is to explore how Allen uses these stanzas to map out a very specific transition. He's guiding us from internal chaos, which he calls passion, to this absolute, unshakable stability he calls peace.
And we aren't just talking about a collection of, short greeting card rhymes here.
Yeah.
This book is anchored by a massive piece called Eolias.
Oh, yeah. It's a beast.
It's described as a lyrical, dramatic poem. What does that even mean? It's like a play.
It's basically a one-act play written in verse, and it serves as the narrative backbone for the whole book. If you skip Eolias, you really miss the context for everything else.
Okay, so let's unpack this drama. Because honestly, the main character, Eolias, is relatable in a way that kind of hurts a little bit.
He really is. He's the everyman.
So set the scene for us. Where do we find this guy?
We open on a lonely island. It's wooded near the seashore. Eolias is just sitting on a fallen tree. He's landed his skiff, his little boat, and the text says he's storm-tossed and fatigued.
But it's not just I need a nap fatigue, is it?
No, not at all.
I was reading his opening monologue, and it sounded exactly like modern burnout. He's tired of the tumult and the terror of the world. He mentions the vain highways where noise drowns everything out.
It's spiritual exhaustion. He's done with the rat race. He is done with the noise. But here's the key distinction that separates him from someone just taking a vacation.
What's that?
He explicitly says he is seeking the peace that does not change and the silence that remains.
That's a tall order. Most of us just want a weekend off to recharge so we can go back to the noise. He wants out of the cycle, for good.
And to find it, he seeks out a prophet who lives on this island. And the dialogue that follows is fascinating because Eolias comes in begging for rest.
He's desperate.
Totally. But the prophet just completely shuts him down.
Yeah, I highlighted this part because it felt so harsh. Eolias says, I want to rest. And the prophet hits him with this riddle. There is no rest in death or life.
Which sounds incredibly bleak at first.
It sounds like a nightmare. Sorry, buddy, you're tired. Too bad, no rest for you, not even when you die.
But you have to listen to the second half. He says, yet or in death or life, where truth is, there is rest.
Okay, so let's parse that. He's redefining rest. It's not a place like a resort or a grave. It's a state of being close to truth. But truth is one of those big capitalized words that can mean anything. How does Allen define it?
He defines it through a metaphor that becomes the core image for the entire book, the nut and the shell.
Right.
The prophet tells Eolias, as the sweet nut is held in the hard shell, so truth in passion is preserved, but is not known till passion be destroyed.
This is where I had to pause and reread. Because when we hear passion today, we usually think of romance or like finding your passion in a career. It's a good thing. He's so passionate.
Correct. But Allen is using passion in the older Stoic sense. He means suffering. He means the chaotic reactive emotions, anger, lust, intense anxiety, ego. He calls this the shell, the husk.
Wow. That is such a flip. So our intense emotions, the things we often think define us, I'm a fiery person or I'm a worrier.
Yeah.
Allen is saying that's just the packaging.
Exactly. It's the hard, inedible shell. The nut, the nourishment, the reality, the truth is inside. But here's the kicker. You cannot get to the nut without breaking the shell.
Meaning you have to destroy those reactive emotions to get to the truth.
Yes. The prophet argues that most people spend their entire lives just polishing the shell. We protect our anger, we justify our anxiety, we think the shell is the nut. Alan says, no, you have to crack it open. And that's a destructive process.
That explains why it feels so painful. Breaking a shell takes force. So Eolias accepts this. He wants to build a temple of perfection. He's ready. But then the prophet gives him a warning that I found. Well, strangely specific. He warns him about pigeons.
The pigeons. This is one of my favorite analogies in the whole text because it's so unexpected.
Right. You're talking about spiritual enlightenment, and suddenly we're talking about pest control. Why is a man seeking ultimate truth worried about birds?
The prophet says, the pigeons pick holes in the buildings, and the storm o'erturns that they had weakened.
Okay, so what are the pigeons here? What do they represent?
They represent little failings, character flaws. We tend to focus on the big stuff, murder, grand theft, huge betrayals. We think, I'm a good person. I haven't killed anyone.
Right, I haven't robbed a bank.
But Alan is saying it's the little things, the petty gossip, the white lies, the irritation in traffic, the snarky comment online. Those are the pigeons.
They pick the mortar out of the bricks.
Precisely. They compromise the structural integrity of your character. So when the storm comes, a crisis, a loss, the whole building collapses, and we act surprised. We say, why did this happen to me? But the prophet is saying, well, you let the pigeons weaken the wall for 20 years.
That is terrifying. It suggests that there are no small sins. Everything counts.
It's a message of total accountability. You can't overlook the small stuff. And that convinces Eolias. He commits to the journey. And that whole story just sets the stage. The rest of the book is really the philosophy for how to deal with those pigeons and break that shell.
So let's move to the how.
Yeah.
The drama is great, but we need the mechanics. There's a poem, Practice and Perception, that seems to be the heavyweight champion of this collection.
It is. If you've ever seen a James Allen quote on Instagram or a coffee mug, it's probably from this poem, even if people think it's from As a Man Thinketh. It has his most famous concept.
The mind is the master power. Stanza. I have it right here. Let's read it. It's powerful. Mind is the master power that molds and makes, and man is mind.
And evermore he takes the tool of thought, and shaping what he wills, brings forth 1,000 joys, 1,000 ills.
And then the line that just stops you in your tracks. He thinks in secret, and it comes to pass. Environment is but his looking glass.
Environment is but his looking glass. That single line is the thesis of Allen's entire worldview. It is the cornerstone.
Let's push on that, because that is a radical statement. If I look at my environment, my desk is messy, my relationships are strained, my bank account is empty. Allen is saying that's just a reflection.
He's saying it's a mirror.
But isn't that a bit? Victim blaming. If someone loses their job in a recession or gets sick, is Allen saying, well, you thought that into existence?
That's a nuance that gets lost a lot.
Yeah.
Allen isn't necessarily saying you telepathically caused a global recession. He's saying your experience of it, your anxiety, your reaction, your state of being within that circumstance is a direct reflection of your mind.
Okay.
If your mind is orderly, the environment, no matter how chaotic, can't disturb your peace. But he usually does go further. He believes our character actually draws events to us.
So we attract what we are.
Yes. In that same poem, the narrator questions the Sphinx. He asks why truth is concealed from us, and the Sphinx replies, concealment only lies in blinded eyes.
Meaning, truth isn't hiding. We just can't see it.
And who put the blinders on?
We did.
We did. Allen writes, I see the broken laws. He explains that the chains we wear are self-wrought. We forge them ourselves. We aren't victims of fate. We are victims of our own lack of self-control.
That connects right to another poem, If Men Only Understood. This one deals with how that internal state wrecks our relationships. This hit home for me.
Yes, the central theme there is retaliation. This is the practical application of the mirror concept.
He writes that if people understood that a wrong act should be annulled with kindness, everything would change. Annulled, that's like legal language, voiding a contract.
It's physics. Action and reaction. Think about it. If you hit me and I hit you back, the energy continues. It escalates.
Yeah.
But if you hit me and I absorb it with kindness, the energy just stops. The contract is annulled.
But that requires a level of detachment that is so hard. Allen says we would see with pity seeing.
That's the shift. Instead of reacting with anger to someone who hurts us, we would see them with pity. Why? Because we get the looking glass principle. We know that by hurting us, they are just damaging their own mind. They're weakening their own citadel.
So their anger isn't really at me. I'm just an extra in their movie.
Exactly. And if you react with anger, you're just dirtying your own mirror. You've handed them the remote control to your emotions.
To help us visualize this, Alan moves into nature imagery. There's a poem, The Music of the Sea, that I found really cinematic.
Alan loves using nature as a diagram for the soul. He sees the external world as a parable for the internal one.
He describes the sea beating on the rocks. He calls it wreckful passion.
Right. The crashing wave is the outburst, the anger, the shouting. It's loud, it's impressive, but it's destructive.
But then, and I think everyone has felt this, he describes the retreating waves, the ebb tide.
He calls it sobbing or pain.
That is such a vivid description of remorse. You know that feeling after a blow-up? You have the explosion, the high tide, and then immediately that sinking, hollow feeling. That's the tide going out. That's the sobbing.
It's the inevitable cycle of passion. High tide, low tide, explosion, regret. But Alan points out a third option. Past the crashing waves, there is the placid water, the deep ocean.
Which represents the silent heart of peace.
It's the part of you that isn't affected by the weather on the surface. Alan says the ocean reflects the madness and the wisdom of our life. Most of us live in the crash and retreat. He wants us to live in the deep water.
He does a similar flip with religious imagery in Star of Wisdom. He takes the Christmas story, which everyone in 1907 would know, and he completely changes the location.
He internalizes it. He stops talking about a historical manger in Bethlehem and starts talking about the stable of the passions.
The stable of the passions. That's a gritty image. A stable is messy, it's full of animals.
And it's dark. He calls it the starless gloom of midnight. But his point is that the lowly birth of Godhead, the arrival of wisdom, happens there.
So you don't find enlightenment by escaping to a monastery or waiting until your life is perfect and clean.
No, you find it by looking into the messy stable of your own animal instincts. Your anger, your greed, your fear, and spotting the light within that darkness. The star arises in the gloom, not the midday sun.
That's actually really hopeful. It means my mess is the raw material. I don't have to throw my life away to find peace. I have to transform it from the inside.
Exactly. You don't need a different life. You need to process the life you have differently.
Okay, so we've got the diagnosis. We're storm-tossed like Eolias. Our environment is a mirror. And we need to find the star in our own messy stable. Let's get down to brass tacks. How do we actually do it?
Alan is always practical, even in rhyme. He lays out the mechanics in a poem called Would You Scale the Highest Heaven?
And the mechanic is just thinking.
It sounds too simple, but yes. He writes, bliss is not except in thinking.
Wait, hold on. I thought the goal was to stop overthinking. Isn't a busy mind the problem?
The uncontrolled mind is the problem. Alan argues that heaven and hell are locations in the mind created by thought. He says, the dream is all within you. It's about directing the thought. Think chaotic thoughts, you live in hell. Think orderly, truthful thoughts, you live in heaven.
So if I'm waiting for my boss to change or my bank account to grow or my partner to apologize before I can be happy, I'm looking in the wrong place.
You're scrubbing the mirror hoping it will change your face. It won't work. There's a poem called One Thing Lacking that illustrates this perfectly. A wealthy man asks the master why he's so sad despite having everything.
He has the money, the status, the perfect environment we all chase.
But the master tells him he lacks one thing: self-surrender.
See, self-surrender is a tough sell. It sounds like losing. It sounds like giving up. Just surrender.
That's how the ego hears it. But in Alan's world, self-surrender is the ultimate victory. It connects to the poem The End of Evil. We think of evil as this external monster. Alan defines evil very simply as good denied.
Good denied. So it's just the absence of light, like a shadow.
Exactly. It's the shadow cast by the self. When you stand in front of the light, you cast a shadow. That's your suffering. The only way to remove the shadow is not to fight it. You can't fight a shadow. You have to remove the obstacle. You have to remove the self.
Which brings us all the way back to the end of Eolias. The prophet gives him one final instruction.
It's the summary of the whole philosophy. The prophet says, let self be nothing and the truth be all.
Let self be nothing. That is the hardest thing in the world. It's basically ego death.
It is, but the promise he attaches to it is massive. The text says, cosmos from chaos rises when the conquered self lies underneath man's heel.
Cosmos from chaos, that is a powerful image. Cosmos means order, right?
Yes, an ordered, harmonious universe. Alan is saying once you stop letting your ego run the show, once you put the self underneath man's heel, the universe naturally organizes itself around you. The chaos resolves.
That's the piece in the title. It's not just being quiet. It's an ordered, harmonious existence.
And notice the imagery of the heel, underneath man's heel. That implies a struggle, a fight, a conquest.
It's so interesting because when you start reading this book, it feels like it's going to be soft. Poems of peace. Sounds gentle. But by the end, you realize it's actually about a battle.
It is a conquest. Alan is very clear about that. Peace isn't a passive accident. You don't just stumble into it. It requires conquering the shell to get to the nut. It requires crushing the ego under your heel.
There's that line in the poem Truth Triumphant that really fired me up. It says, "Stand up and strike, O conqueror of woe."
Stand up and strike. It's militant. There is no height to which that canst not climb. It's a call to action.
Which is such a paradox, but it makes perfect sense. You have to fight your own lower nature to find serenity. You have to wage war on the pigeons to get the peace.
And that's the journey of Eolias. He starts as a victim of the storm, and he ends as a master of himself. He stops looking for a safe harbor and becomes the harbor.
So what does this all mean for us today? We aren't on a lonely island with a prophet. We're in traffic, we're at work, we're dealing with noise.
I think we go back to that central mirror metaphor. Environment is but his looking glass.
It's the ultimate accountability check.
It is. If you look at your environment right now, your stress, your relationships, your challenges, and you treat it purely as a mirror of your own mind, what is it trying to show you that you've been ignoring?
That is a heavy question to sit with. If my life feels chaotic, it's because I'm harboring chaos. If my life feels hostile, it's because I'm harboring hostility.
And remember, if you don't like the reflection, you don't scrub the mirror. You change the face you're presenting to it. You change the mind.
Mind is the master power.
It is the only power we truly have.
James Allen, Poems of Peace. It's over a century old, but somehow it feels like it was written for this exact moment.
Truth usually does.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the poetic side of self-control. We'll see you next time.